Welcome to a special Airsoft Reports presentation of the new RAP4 Bazooka Grenade Launcher. Now, we've had several weeks to test this Bazooka Grenade Launcher, and I have to say, we have had nothing but lots and lots of fun with this thing. At its core, it's nothing more than a tube. I'm going to point it towards the camera here, and you can see that there's nothing in here other than just a 2-inch diameter cylinder, basically. And of course, you do have two grips. These are really nice grips, by the way. I mean, they're wood, they look good, they give you plenty of gripping space, and you have a fairly simple trigger mechanism which operates very similar to well, any other trigger really, except that you have to pull it fast. Don't squeeze. You're going to actually want to pull this one pretty hard. And that allows for a very uniform and very quick release of the gas to propel whatever projectile you have in there. Now, speaking of projectiles, there's actually a fair amount that you can utilize with this particular type of launcher because it's nothing more than a tube. So RAP4 was great. They sent us a Nerf projectile, and we've tested it out with some paint grenades. They also sent us several of those. And we've also utilized our own improvised projectiles, which include potatoes. And you know, again, there are some safety concerns with some of the heavier stuff, but the point is that you can use almost anything that'll fit inside this barrel, which is really, really slick. Now let's take a look at some of the more detailed features. Now, the RAP4 Bazooka isn't feature-rich, but we'll show you the few that you need to know about. Starting at the rear of the gun, obviously you have the tank, but you're going to need to supply yourself. This is a full-size CO2 cylinder, so you won't be able to use, obviously, the smaller powerlets, the 12-gram powerlets, unless, of course, you secure an adapter. On the back of the gun you have a gauge, which we have found to have sort of mixed results. Right now it seems to be giving us something of a reading, but the needle is just above the 0, and we still have a little bit of gas left. You also have an on-off switch, which is really nice, because once you screw the bottle in, then you can actually open the valve, charge up the tube, and of course you'll hear the gas rushing out of the bottle and into the back of the launcher. Then here you have a secondary gauge, and this actually provides you with information as to whether you have enough pressure in the chamber to actually propel your target. Hopefully you'll be able to see that for the camera. There's a little bit of glare, I think. But you also have a purge valve right here should you need to purge air from the system. And then, of course, moving forward on the gun, you have the very straightforward trigger mechanism. I mentioned that already. And then finally, at the very front of the tube, you have a series of sights which are very rudimentary, but they generally work. It'll take you a little while to practice to see. I mean, the top sight is going to give you the flattest trajectory, which is going to give you, of course, the least amount of range. We have found that we've used the middle sight the most because we're usually aiming at targets that are between 75 and 100 feet away. And then, of course, the third you could use, but you're really going to be mortaring your projectile at that point, and your accuracy will probably suffer a little bit, but generally if you're using a heavy enough projectile, you know, you can keep a semblance of a decent, you know, grouping, if you want to call it that. Anyway, that's the extent of the feature set. As I said, it's really simple and it works. So let's show you how it fires. Now, RAP4 sent us a small Nerf-style projectile. It's a tiny rocket with fins in the back. Can't weigh more than a few ounces. And we found that the best way to fire this little guy is to put some type of wadding behind it in the tube. And we've used pretty much everything from just standard toilet paper to paper towels, and then we had a suggestion to use some inexpensive white bread because it's biodegradable and it provides perfect wadding. Now we're firing the Nerf dart with the white bread wadding. Wasn't so bad, and the advantage to utilizing this kind of a wadding is that you don't have to worry about the cleanup because obviously it's biodegradable. Something will eat it or it'll just wash away. And so we like using, you know, that kind of wadding. You can use almost anything. We've used paper towel successfully, toilet paper, whatever you have on hand, but we like to try to stay sort of green. And so as you can see, the effective accuracy, effective range was not bad. You're looking at probably about 75 feet there, and that was with the lowest sight setting, so it's the most flat trajectory path that you can utilize with this. Let's try it again. Now, just to give you an idea of how you can affect the range, we've actually used some paper towel wadding, and this will give you an idea of how you can kind of alter the effective range. So let's take a look. it might not be as earth friendly, but you're going to get the range you're going to need. So I think it's safe to say that if you're looking for range, you're going to want to use paper towel, or you're going to want to use bread that's a little bit thicker than the stuff we've got on hand. Right there, you're looking at a shot that almost hit 175 feet. It actually landed probably short, just around about 140 feet, which is pretty doggone good. One other thing I wanted to mention is, with those little darts, you definitely want to bend the fins so that you create a spiral. It gives you a lot of stability in the flight path. We've got a few more things we want to show you, and next up is going to be potatoes. So let's take a look at that. Alright, so say you've used your Nerf darts, let's say you've used your paint grenades, let's say you've used everything that, well, you've thought of up to this point. The last thing you might utilize, assuming it was safe and practical, might be nothing more complicated than the average potato. In this case, we've had to shave off the edges using nothing more than a PVC pipe. It was 2 inches in diameter on the inside, and so is this. So squeezing this potato through yielded us a perfectly sized projectile that literally seats in there perfectly. Goes all the way down almost, and there's a fairly tight seal. And it yields you something that is biodegradable, it's cheap, and reasonably effective. It doesn't give you quite the range of the dart, but then it is a lot heavier. Before we shoot this though, one thing I just want to say is that you've always got to use your common sense. Most of the time when we're testing airsoft guns, you know, we always recommend you wear safety goggles because, of course, those are tiny but powerful projectiles. These are larger. This is something that could do a fair amount of damage. I mean, I could see something like this knocking someone out or worse. So I have to say off the bat right here, you know, you got to use this at your own risk. Use your best common sense. Always, you know, think safety, because these things can really do a fair amount of damage. So just be careful. We've got our potato locked and loaded. Everything's charged up. Let's see what it can do. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Oh, man, there's quite a kick on that thing. And as you saw, the potato, it got some pretty good range. I mean, that was actually just about the same as our dart. That's probably the best shot we've got so far, so I'm actually impressed. It must have been the best seal so far on the potato. But as you can see, it's a tube. You can pretty much launch whatever you can fit through there. Of course, you want to be careful. You don't want to get it scratched up or anything like that. You certainly don't want to damage the valve in the end there, so be careful. You don't dump sand in, for example. But RAP4 has told us that you can load anything from airsoft BBs with wadding, of course, to paintballs, even airsoft-sized paintballs. So the world is your oyster with this thing. Really, it's a launcher. Looks like a bazooka, but it's a launcher. It's a ton of fun. If you've got $399.99, definitely give this thing a serious look. You can use it for almost anything, from your average skirmish if you're doing an attack and defend, which is what we've used it for, or if you're doing scenario games, this is a perfect anti-tank weapon, or even against a base. So there's a load of things you can do with this thing, and we've had a lot of fun with it so far. We made up quite a few potatoes, and because we've got the CO2 and the potatoes, we're going to use them. So lucky you get to see the results. Let's take a look. Firing 3, 2, 1. Man, the kick on that thing is quite big for something that's not a real firearm. And as you can see, the range is quite good too. Let's try something solid. You can see what happens when the potato hits it.